Most people weren't familiar with the Githyanki until the best girl herself, Lae'zel, showed up in Baldur's Gate 3.
You might be availed of the riches I offer. We shall know in time.
Now, long-time D&D players already knew them, but for many, this was the first encounter with these gaunt, yellow-skinned warriors obsessed with Vlaakith, discipline, and destiny. So let me tell you why the Githyanki are a race defined by generational trauma. Because the Githyanki are not just psychic warriors from the astral plane riding red dragons. They're just like ogres. They've got layers. Although the Githyanki appear to be humanoid, they are actually classified as aberrations, creatures outside the natural order of the universe, not just different, cosmically wrong. According to Psychology Today, in humans, the feeling of not belonging activates the same neural pathways as physical pain. Just think at any point in your life where you felt excluded, whether it be on purpose or not on purpose, it actually really hurts. And I only realized that again recently, so just think about that. Belonging isn't a luxury, it's a biological need, and now scale that up. What happens when an entire species exists in a state of existential exile? That wound doesn't disappear, it festers and it ingrains itself. It becomes your identity, your species' entire identity. Interestingly enough, we don't actually know where the Gith came from. What we do know is that they were enslaved by the mind flayers, or lithids, as you may know them as, for generations. They were experimented on, twisted, altered, their biology reshaped, their reproduction completely controlled. This wasn't just oppression, it was a systematic violation of the entire species, a rewriting of their physical and psychological reality. Just imagine that. You are a species who exists because you were violated on a genetic level. Let that sink in. Eventually the Githyanki rebelled, and again, if you play Baldur's Gate 3, that gets talked about a lot. I'm not going to talk about it here, maybe in a future video. But the rebellion didn't erase the trauma, it crystallized it. For them, their entire cultural origin story is, we were slaves who fought back, and that struggle didn't fade in the myth, it became their doctrine. And if your origin story is violence, violence can become ingrained in you. It becomes tradition, it becomes identity, it becomes the lens through which you interpret the universe. The Githyanki didn't just win freedom, they built a civilization around never being powerless again. The Githyanki are traditionally described as lawful evil, with a rigid hierarchy, strict codes, ritualized combat, absolute obedience to the God Queen herself, the Lich Vlaakith. Sorry, almost God Queen. Everything has rank, everything has structure, and everything has consequence. So the American Psychiatric Association defines trauma exposure as involving death, severe injury, or sexual violence. In my opinion, the Gith endured all three, systematically and generationally. And not for decades, not for hundreds of years, for millennium. We don't know how long they were enslaved for, but if you're making a Gith character, think about that. Slaughter, experimentation, biological violation, becoming cattle. Prolonged trauma reshaped their behavior. In humans, trauma can produce hypervigilance and compulsive control behaviors, not because someone enjoys order, but because order feels like safety. Control becomes a shield against chaos. If everything is regulated, nothing can surprise us. If hierarchy is absolute, weakness cannot spread. If discipline is enforced, we will never be slaves again. Viewed through this lens, Githyanki society resembles institutionalized compulsive control. It's ritualized violence, ritualized hierarchy, and ritualized loyalty. Deviation is punished because unpredictability once meant annihilation. For the Githyanki, order is not preference, it is prevention. It is the cultural equivalent of checking the lock again and again and again. As a race, the Githyanki exhibit behaviours consistent with post-traumatic stress responses, particularly hypervigilance. In secure terms, this is condition yellow. It's described as controlled but heightened state of awareness. You are not panicked, you are not reacting, but you are constantly scanning. Jason Bourne at the start of the first film, when he goes in and he recognises all the exits in the cafe. Or Arya Stark when she's got her kill list and she's starting to get kind of scary. That's it. For trauma survivors, this state can become permanent. Hypervigilance is the exhausting, persistent monitoring of the environment for danger. The threat may not be present, but for the nervous system, it behaves as if it could return at any moment. Now look at the Githyanki. They are perpetually ready for war. They train without rest. They raid preemptively, and they assume hostility. Everything is a potential threat. This ties directly in with their hyper-aggressive tendencies. Aggression in this context is anticipation. They believe this constant readiness is their strength, but psychologically it reads as fear that was never allowed to be resolved. They are civilization frozen in survival mode. Not because they are inherently cruel, but because somewhere in their collective memory the chains are still there. And the child who was once learning that the world is unsafe never stopped watching. This is the first of my new series on the species of Dungeons and Dragons and the psychology behind them. And I wanted to start with the Gith because for me, this idea of generational trauma resonates very deeply. If you haven't picked up from my accent, I'm from Northern Ireland, or if you prefer, the north of Ireland. And even by saying that, I have probably offended a lot of people. It's not intentional. My people have gone through repeated cycles of violence, and the most recent chapter barely closed before the new millennium. And now studies are beginning to show how generational trauma continues to affect my people. This manifests in tribalism, poor educational outcomes, chronic health conditions such as arthritis and persistent pain, higher exposure to domestic violence and addiction, impaired mental health, and self-harming behaviours. Trauma doesn't just disappear when the fighting stops, it lingers. And for me, some of that you can see in the Githyanki. The Githyanki are not evil for the sake of villainy. They are what happens when a species survives something unspeakable and never stops to process it. Their aggression is armour, their hierarchy is protection, and their superiority complex is scar tissue. They choose control over vulnerability, and maybe that's why just this resonates. Because generational trauma isn't fantasy, it's real, and sometimes it rides a red dragon. And if you're still here, guys, thanks for joining me. If you like this, you're going to love what's coming next. So, probably going to be the Drow, could be Tiefling, and eventually I'm probably going to do a video on the Githzerai, which is the Githyanki, if they actually went to therapy, I guess. On saying that, guys, if you like this, please like and subscribe. My name's David, and as always, I'm the Concurrent Chronicler, and I will see you all next week.